It's always good to start your day shoveling 5 or 6 inches of snow off of your rental car as you're trying to, do your job and get to work. So, started the day in the snow, ending the day in the freezing rain, almost snow apparently. A Massachusetts to Connecticut day of work. Rhode Island thrown there in the middle. On a Sunday, no less. Forget all that. It's Coast to Coast Pinball, episode 135. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast commentary. My man at quarters. I am joining you tonight, not live, from New London, Connecticut. New London, Connecticut, here on Sunday, February 8th, 2015. It's cold. I'm out on the East Coast trying to get my job done, trying to work, traveling with my boss. We're out seeing accounts in New England. We've been all over Massachusetts and New Hampshire, seeing clients of ours, getting business done. Worked a full day yesterday. Today was really more of a short travel day, but the roads were terrible. Snow everywhere. It's winter time. I miss San Diego. So be it. The show must go on, as they say. So glad to be back. Had a week of no shows after episode 134 and the very popular interview with Charlie and Ben from Spooky Pinball. I got a ton of email and feedback through various social media outlets about that show. People really, really liked that. I think we might have pushed some people over the edge to buy America's Most Haunted, which is good for Spooky Pinball. Very cool. I know Ben is working on an update right now. There's threads about it on Pinside. Good stuff for them. I'm really proud of those guys. Congratulations to them. Tonight, we've got some news, and we're going to jump into the Pinside forum to address some of that news.
Forum static.
All right, this is a weird one. This is the piece of news I would normally really want to shy away from here on Coast to Coast Pinball, because I like to talk about pinball and the game of pinball and the business of pinball. And this one borders on what I like to discuss on this show. However, I think it is relevant, and I was tipped off to this story coming because it was being posted on Replay Magazine's website. Replay is a magazine on the coin-op industry. And it's a story concerning Jersey Jack Pinball and a lawsuit that has been filed against both Jack himself and Jersey Jack as a company. And it's being filed by a company called Elot. I'm not sure how they pronounce the name of the company, which is a European company, Elaut, and they're filing a lawsuit against Jack and the company, saying that there's been money taken wrongfully from when Jack was the CEO, I believe, of Elaut. And I saw it in the article originally and thought, you know what, I probably won't talk about that a whole lot because I don't know any of the facts. I don't know enough to speculate, etc., etc., etc. Well, shortly after I heard about the story, Jack himself, about a week ago, I think it was a week ago tomorrow, went ahead and posted on Pinside in the Jersey Jack Pinball subforum in a thread called Elaut USA Inc. He posted this. He said, "I called Replay today to make them aware of this. I cannot comment more, but there's no fact that will support their claims." So he's the one that actually tipped Replay off to the story, apparently, and Replay ran with it. And he copied this release of sorts, which says, Elaut, Jersey Jack embroiled in lawsuit. They deny allegations. There's a lawsuit filed in New Jersey State Court alleging that Jack and former CFO Michael Carl and the current company, Jersey Jack Pinball, diverted more than $1.6 million from the company coffers illegally. He says that he transferred the money to himself and his company through so-called accounting tricks. Guarnieri, a columnist for this publication, being Replay, reached out to Replay to deny the lawsuit allegations And Jack said in a statement to Replay, "I left the employ of Elout USA more than 3 years ago. The complaint alleges that I, while employed at Elout USA, took money for myself and for Jersey Jack Pinball Inc., to which I was not entitled. I have categorically denied these allegations in response to this complaint, and I categorically deny them now. The complaint is utterly without merit. I intend to vigorously defend this matter and anticipate that when the truth emerges, I will be fully vindicated as to each and every allegation." And it's important to note that Michael Carl has also denied all these allegations. So what does that mean for pinball, right? So Jack's in this situation where he used to work for this company, and this company is most famous for building the claw games, like redemption type games, and they're saying that there's money taken from the company. So I guess from my first point of view on this is, like I said, I don't know any of the facts. I don't know anything about it. Can't even begin to speculate what's going on exactly. But I can tell you this. Jack is in a terrible position for something like this to kind of pop up and shade doubt over his company right now. Pinball is in this weird kind of transitioning period where we have all these companies getting games to market, and we're starting to see companies slip up and stumble and miss deadlines and having major communication breakdowns, quotes around it, Led Zeppelin. And Jack at least has one game shipped under his belt, Wizard of Oz. Granted, it took forever in some people's eyes. I think probably if we had really thought about how long that project like that would take, it probably took the appropriate amount of time. But now we're working on The Hobbit. The Hobbit has been delayed. They've made some changes to the game. I think they listened to criticism, etc., etc. I think we know the story on The Hobbit. It's coming. They're still sort of working on a pre-order type situation. Now, granted, they're going to build games either way, and there's distributors buying games. So it's not a full pre-order type of situation, but I think it's important for Jersey Jack Pinball still to have money coming in early money on their new games. And we have Pat Lawler's yet to be announced game coming up next, and some rumors say it could be as soon as this summer. I think that game is fairly far along in the production cycle. I think it will be in Jersey Jack Pinball's best interest if there are early adopters who buy the game and who send money in. But people did that with The Hobbit, and they're waiting. And so news like this of a lawsuit, in and of itself, I don't know if it means a whole lot to us as pinball fans and me as a pinball, quote, commentator or whatever I am. But what it could do, and what it's unfortunate that could happen here, is it might shake the confidence of would-be buyers for Jersey Jack Pinball, who might see The Hobbit now kind of in its mostly complete stage and send money in on the game, or see the next game, which will be the Pat Lawler game, and they might send money on that based on just the fact that Jersey Jack, who's built these beautiful games so far, is working with Pat Lawler. They might send money in. Well, what if we now have the specter of this lawsuit hanging over the top of a company that has had its fair share of, kind of ups and downs? I know, there was the word of investors coming in to sort of help the company along. Building pinball machines is hard. We know that on this show, and it's amazing how far Jack has come in such a short period of time. It's unfortunate that something like this is getting up in his way. I've heard lots of speculation on what's going on here. Whether or not there's truth to the accusations, I don't know, but I do know that there is people who are wondering on both Pinside and to me via email, is this some sort of retaliation against Jersey Jack Pinball by his former employer for Jack leaving the company and starting his own company that, while it does not directly compete with Redemption and Crane type games, it can certainly compete for space in the type of business that might purchase one of those type of games. And now with Jack and Jersey Jack Pinball launching the Pindemption, the pinball machines that have ticket dispensers on them. So you have a Wizard of Oz game which dispenses tickets, with the thought process being younger folks love to get tickets from redemption games. So they're aiming at that. That sort of could compete more directly with what Elout is doing. And there is people wondering out loud, is this just sour grapes? Elout has had a fairly litigious history. There have been some lawsuits against them, and maybe they're now, turning their focus and attention and ire towards their former CEO. Things like that happen in business. So I don't know. I have no real, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what happened here. I don't know what happened. It's going to play out in the courts, probably over a long period of time. But I certainly hope, for pinball's sake, that Jack is innocent of these accusations. I would hate to think that a company would falsely accuse somebody, but I would much rather have one of the luminaries in our pinball hobby right now be innocent of that and have a company making, a false accusation than I would have the other side of the coin, which might be Jack found guilty of something like this, which we I think all of us in pinball likely hope is not the case. So, that's all I can really say on that, other than, it was interesting that Jack wanted to get out ahead of it and posted it on Pinside himself before somebody else saw this somewhere, or news of this was leaked elsewhere, and you had a third party maybe getting the facts wrong and posting it wrong, and it might look like Jack was hiding or running away from it, whereas it's very clear that Jack is taking it head on Pinside. Here's what's going on. He obviously can't comment on it because it's a legal issue, but he did throw out kind of the initial facts. And over the last week, there's 5 pages of comments, and that's not really that much, to be quite honest, for something that could be perceived as a really big scandal. So I think that was probably a good PR move for Jack to go ahead and get it out there in the pinball, mind tank, if you will, think tank, if you will. So interesting. We will definitely be following that one. And speaking of pinball companies communicating with their customers, this week, 3 days ago, we saw a new newsletter coming from our friends at Dutch Pinball, and this was sort of highly anticipated. I know that the couple shows I dedicated towards this were how should I put this? Roger Sharp's interview specifically was probably the last real good news and sort of shoring up of some confidence for many of the Dutch Pinball onlookers, customers, and etc. And we hadn't heard a lot since then. And I actually had texted Barry myself and just said, hey, what's going on? Anything happening? Because even I'm trying to be working on real world time and not just internet time. Because I talk about that is the internet moves so fast that the real world is much slower. But I wanted to know what was going on. Hadn't heard anything in a while, and it was funny that the day I texted Barry, I think he said releasing some news in a day or two, and you'll see it then. So they released a newsletter. I'll kind of breeze through it here real quick, just in case you're not following all the news on the internet. It basically says we can look back on a period of achievement, challenges met, competitors bested, obstacles overcome. Sure wasn't easy at all the time, but we will come out stronger, et cetera, et cetera. We are pleased to present you with a new NSN, new blank newsletter, PG show, folks, with some good news. Playfield approved. We're happy to announce that with the tremendous help of Roger Sharp, we now have the approvals for all of the artwork. We are proud to present to you the final playfield of the Big Lebowski Pinball. And I'd heard this back at the Arcade Expo event. Roger had told us that the playfield artwork was approved. That's confirmed here. They show you the artwork, so you can see the changes made. The pot leaf came off, the gun came off, a change to the girl's legs on the left side, a few other little small changes, and so we have the final artwork for the Big Lebowski Pinball. I think it looks good. I certainly find it personally silly that people are, so disappointed that the pot leaf is gone. I've watched the Big Lebowski many, many times. I don't remember a pot leaf being a very vivid image. Maybe a joint in there somewhere, but not a pot leaf. So, and taking a gun off the playfield, who cares? I just don't think it's not a big deal, to me at least. So, just like I think the whole Kahlua thing, who cares? Like, really, at the end of the day, does it matter? If you've never seen the Kahlua thing there before, it's the problem. When you show somebody something and you take it away, they complain. So I don't really ever care about that. So, they continue on in their newsletter. New Dutch Pinball team members, Jeff and Don. And no, this is not Jeff and Don from the Pinball Podcast. I don't think they have time in their busy schedules to work for Dutch Pinball, right, guys? Have joined the team of Dutch Pinball USA, Inc. to help us in the transition of the company. All official paperwork has been submitted to the IRS and our PayPal partners, and we expect to hear from them again any day now. As soon as we have authorization, we'll be sending out more information regarding the refund process. We take this very seriously and looking forward to resolving the last couple of issues that are outstanding. So, basically what they're addressing there is people want their refunds. There are people who want their money back. They promised refunds through this project, and there are people who have been very adamant on wanting their money back after the blow up with Phil leaving Dutch Pinball USA and some refunds being given back without asking. Some people felt uncomfortable, wanted their money back, want to wait for the game to be produced, etc., etc. So that's where the communication's been tough on this one. Is from what I don't have any insider information on this, or if I do, I've forgotten it, or if I do, I can't share it. You be the judge of all that. But what I think is going on here is, I think we all know that Dutch Pinball USA was Barry, Jaap, and Phil, and Dutch Pinball, Europe, the actual manufacturing company was Barry and Jaap. Well, the USA one controlled the PayPal account, and the PayPal account is where much of the pre-order money was. And I believe the PayPal account needed to be accessed by Phil, and Phil and these guys have had a falling out, so you have issues. And it's easy to say, send us the money back, but if you can't get into the account to get the money, you can't send the money back. So I don't know all the details in there, and I know there's been a lot of questions to that. Hopefully that all gets ironed out between the company and those owed money. Right? I guess that's what I can say. So they go into Jeff and Don's background a little bit, saying that Jeff is a CPA and CGMA with 27 years of accounting and business advisory services. So he's got cash flow management skills, business growth planning, sales forecasting, etc., etc. Don brings 25 years experience in risk management and policyholder retention in the service industry. Customer service is the trade. Don has a no-nonsense approach to customer service and operations, etc., etc. So, and they say, you see, nothing is effed up here, dude. Nothing is effed. Production updates. We have not been sitting on our hands and have been testing the rug toy in the bowling alley. The results are good. We also sent out all the Bride of Pinbot 2.0 kits and got real nice feedback. Thank you so much for that. So I think that is a pretty good update from Dutch Pinball, all things considering, and getting to see the playfield artwork is great. Some people were not satisfied. I think some people will never be satisfied, but what I would say is what I think I said when all of the problems and trouble went down. This game's going to get built. That's happening. Like, I would bet a lot on that. The game's going to get built. The people who want refunds are eventually going to get their money. I really don't see a future in this particular project where people get taken and the money just disappears. I don't see that happening, from my best guesses. And the fact that they are still moving forward and testing parts and getting towards their production is important. For those of you who don't know, and I've seen people post that clearly don't know, and I've had a few emails, they are not building a factory to build pinball machines. Dutch Pinball is hiring contract manufacturers. So they are going out and finding companies in their area, in Holland, who build similar, or at least, if not similar, something sort of related pieces of machinery, electronic machinery, that could look at a pinball machine and a bill of materials and a build sheet, and then build a pinball machine in that factory. And they have those, and they have very highly skilled people who I think actually look at a pinball machine as sort of simple compared to what they build. So the rundown I've gotten from both Phil and Barry, who I've spoken to about this over the last 6 months, is that side of things will be pretty smooth, I believe, once they get that up and going. So if you're waiting for like news or photos of something like we're seeing at Highway Pinball, or when we saw Jersey Jack build his factory, you're not going to see that from Dutch Pinball, because they're going to send parts and send, their people to a factory, teach them how to build this on a line, and then they're going to get cranked out. I have had an email recently from someone, I don't have my mailbag in front of me, so apologies, that said they had the money in with Dutch Pinball. They had considered pulling it out because the game will be unlimited built. And what I would say to that is yes and no. Yeah, there is. They're going to build a certain amount of games, but don't. And this is not like a spooky pinball situation where they've set a cap where there's 150 games being built and they're done with America's Most Haunted. They'll build a lot of Big Lebowski pinball machines, but they're not going to build this game forever. This game will have a limited run of some sort, and I wouldn't call it a limited run in that they can't guarantee you, well, there's only going to be 1,000 of these, or there's only going to be 1,200. It's more like we're going to build these to meet demand, build some inventory, and start working on the second game. So if you're really into the Big Lebowski, or you really like this particular game for whatever reason, I wouldn't just count on 3 years down the line there still being Big Lebowskis out there. Just to answer that question as best I can, is yes, I think there will be inventory to buy at some point, and no, I don't believe there will be games forever. So careful there. But I think good news. I think there will be more news about the refunds in the not too distant future. You start dealing with money and partners and PayPal. Things can get messy and things take time. And I don't know if I'd be very patient either if I had thousands of dollars hung up on a game that I got spooked on. So I totally understand people being impatient, but I also do understand that things just don't happen as fast. Hopefully we can get as many details from Dutch Pinball as we can going forward to sort of ease people's minds. I think the more they reach out and talk about it, the better and more goodwill they're going to buy themselves with the pinball community. But I think this is a good step back towards reinstating some of that faith in this project going forward. Piece of forum static I want to get into. Yesterday, February 7th, Saturday, was most of the IFPA state championships were played, if not all of them. I believe all of them. And if you don't know what that is, so the International Flipper Pinball Association holds a national championship, and they have state championships that feed the winners into the national event, and states hold them. And I believe there was over 30 state championships played yesterday. I just looked at the list of the winners that somebody was so kind to post here on Pinside. Most of the big pinball obvious states, your Californias, your Michigans, your Wisconsins, your Illinois have state championships. You didn't see championships played out in places like the Dakotas. I think there was no... Did we have? Yeah, we had New Hampshire. I don't think there was a Rhode Island, so no Rhode Island. So we're not all the way to 50 yet, but I think that in the not-too-distant future, in one of these next few years, we're going to be at a point where, if not every state, nearly every state will have a state champion named every year, which I think is really cool for competitive pinball. Looking at who won these tournaments, is you'll see some pretty familiar names. Bowen Cairns, the number 6 player in the world, won the Massachusetts State Championship. Who won California? Oh, Andre Masenkoff won California. I think that's no surprise to anybody who's seen Andre play. But I guess why I'm kind of going through these is, what I find interesting is if you're in a state with a guy like Bowen Cairns, or an Adam Lefkoff who won Colorado, or, just looking down this list, let's see, Robert Gagnon won British Columbia, not a state, obviously, territory in Canada, province in Canada, excuse me, sorry, geez, I can feel the anger from the north just facing me, sorry, but you have these top level players, Andy Rosa in Michigan, and if you're like, say you're in like that, like 30 to 100 ranking range, and you've got a top 10 guy in your state, there's two ways of thinking about it. Do you try and take him out and be the man and conquer and be the king of, I don't know, whatever state you're in, or do you qualify in a neighboring state and go play over there? because we saw some of that. We saw some big names winning in states where they might not be expected to win. And totally within the rules. You can qualify in any state where you play tournaments and qualify in the top 16, and then you declare where you're going to play. But it brings up some interesting, I think, conversations as we grow competitive pinball and see it happen and get bigger. I don't know. I think that there's some interesting stuff going on there. I think the real story is how popular this seemed to be and how there was streaming video on the internet. People were talking about it, covering it. I think that next year we need to focus on it even more. I thought it was interesting looking at all the states and who won the state championship. I sort of was looking for maybe the weak spot where I could have a shot to even, maybe qualify. And I've got my eye on Maine next year. And Paul Litalian, I don't know how to say your name, sir. Paul Litalian Sr., he won the Maine State Championship with a world ranking of 2,463rd. He was the only player ranked higher than 1,200, I think, to win a state championship. The next highest was Scott Hannon in Louisiana at 1,194th to win. Most of the people winning these state championships were in the top, I would say top 300, top 400, and quite a few in the top 30. So I'm going to pick my spot and call my shot and try and qualify in Maine. I mean, I say that. I'm probably not going to. I probably won't play a tournament in Maine all year. But I'm just saying, it's the way you could look at it. Because in California, I don't ever have a shot. I'll never, let alone qualify. But the people that play in California, there's a lot of players, a lot of good players. So it opens up some interesting conversations about, what is the state champion? Should it be someone from the state? Some people think that. Should it be someone who played the majority of their tournaments in that state? Because there were people qualifying for states where they only played one tournament all year. They don't live there, and they traveled to there, and they played in a big tournament, and they did high, and so they were qualified in that state. So they go back and they play in the state championship, and they can make their way possibly to the nationals through that. So it brings up all this strategy and interesting conversations to be had, which leads me to, not official, but mostly official, I'm going to start having a new segment on Coast to Coast Pinball that I've been dreaming up for quite a while. I didn't really know how I wanted to do it, but it's going to have more of a focus on the world of competitive pinball. I have some guests lined up who are going to come on the show to speak to their roles and their experiences in current modern competitive pinball. Names that if you follow the IFPA and watch Papa. Some people have agreed to come on the show that are in that. But I also reached out to Josh Sharp, who is obviously the president, I believe president of the IFPA. If not president, he's the man at the IFPA, if I don't know his official title. And asked Josh, I said, would you be interested in actually coming on the show on a regular basis and, talking about competitive pinball? And he said, yeah, he'd love to. He said, count me in. So we haven't made any plans yet. We're not there yet, but we're going to do it. I think Josh is the right guy to come on and do that. He knows all the players. He knows when the events are. He knows how the system works, obviously. And you can read all about the changes to 2015 and IFPA points online. There's lots of threads that discuss that. So I think there's more room on this show and in my mind for the show to do talk of competitive pinball. And I've had many people tell me that they never thought about playing a tournament or going to Papa until they heard me and the way I talk about it and how much fun it is. Because it's you don't have to be the best player in the world to get involved, and it will absolutely make you a better pinball player. And it's fun, and you meet people, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. So I look forward to having Josh start coming on the show and us doing a segment, which I'll have some ridiculous name for and a silly little bumper voice to talk about that when we get there. So definitely looking forward to that. If you're listening and you're thinking, yeah, I hope they talk about this, email me. Let me know. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on competitive pinball, tournaments, IFPA, World Pinball Player ranking points, etc., etc., etc. And we'll try and address that in future episodes of Coast to Coast Pinball.
Going up.
Going down.
Did you miss this? Going up, going down? Did you think it was gone forever? Somebody told me they liked it when I used to do these other segments that are now gone from your show, and now you just talk about business and all the people you met in pinball. You're just part of the machine, man. Well, whatever. So we're going to talk about going up, going down. And I picked 2 games tonight in my head while I was driving today that I thought, I hypothesized that these games might be going up in value, in status. I knew it was going up in status. That you can just, you just know by reading the internet and the interwebs and seeing what games are being talked about a lot. And I knew one was also sort of kind of just forgotten about and going down. And so I got to my hotel here in New London, Connecticut. I waded through all the snow and ice. There wasn't that much, I'm just kidding. But I got up here and I looked, and you know what? I was right. I was absolutely right. And I picked these games not thinking about this, but they're designed by the same guy, and they're from the same company, so I think that's kind of cool. So here we go. Going up, going down. This is a segment where I choose a game that I believe is going up in value and status, maybe is selling for a lot more than it was previous, or is the current flavor of the month. And then I pick a game which is doing the opposite, which is falling out of favor with us in the collective pinball universe. And the game going up right now is 1993 Williams release Bram Stoker's Dracula. If you have been paying attention, this has been the flavor of the 6 months, maybe year. People have just gotten all goo gaga for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And it's funny because it's a game that I think shares a few similarities with another current dark-themed game, Spooky Pinballs America's Most Haunted, just because it's really hard. It's one of the harder games of this era of pinball machines. Barry Ausler designed Bram Stoker's Dracula based on the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1993. They built almost 7,000 of these games. They built quite a few of them. January 1993, so it was early 93. It's a game that the artwork gets criticized really badly. The back glass, the blue on the play field. It's a game that has a couple toys and probably one of the coolest multi-ball starts of all time with the missed multi-ball and the magnet trail that takes the ball kind of floating across the play field. It's very, very cool. It's a game that I thought in my head probably has risen a bunch in popularity, and I was right. If you go to the bostonpinball.biz eBay sales summary page, it's a pretty cool page. They keep a spreadsheet going of all-time average sale prices for pinball machines and then a running 12-month list of what the prices were, average price. And they keep a high price and a low price. If you go and look at that for the sale price of Dracula, and it's under Dracula, Bram Stoker's, you will see that the average price ever of a Bram Stoker's Dracula on eBay, since they've been charting this, is $1,374. There's been a total of 168 of these games sell on eBay. The story here, though, is when you look at the last 12 months of sales. The average sale nearly doubled the price of the historical average. So the last 12-month sale price was $2,640, and that's based off 5 sales. That is a 92% increase over the average. That's a big jump. I think if you also go and just do a quick search on Pinside for posts about Bram Stoker's Dracula, a lot of people are into this game right now. You see a lot of people talking about how hard it is, how it's one of those games that it sort of drives you crazy because this game is so difficult, you just want to play it again. And that is often a good sign in keeping people and home collections happy. There's actually want ads on Pinside right now for looking. There's 2 that I see right away. Actually, I'm wrong. I'm seeing 5 want ads for Bram Stoker's Dracula on Pinside, which you rarely see more than 1 or 2 for any game. So there's 5 of them right now. People are looking for this game. It's one of the hot titles. It's going up in value. It is currently ranked on the Pinside Top 100, and this kind of blew my mind. This game is ranked number 32 of all time. I couldn't believe that. At one point, this game was as low as 48, so it's always been fairly highly ranked, and that was a long, long time ago. This game's been all the way up in the last 2 years, up to like number 21. Bram Stoker's Dracula was at one point in 2012 ranked the number 21 pinball game of all time. I don't personally see it. I think this one is getting a lot of fanfare that I don't know that it absolutely deserves. I've never loved this game. I like this game. I don't love this game, but that's really high ranking. So today it sits at number 32, and that honestly blows my mind, because you look at the other games around it on this list. Number 30 is Whirlwind. It's an all-time classic. Number 31, No Good Gophers. 32 is Bram Stoker's Dracula. 33, The Getaway High Speed 2. Revenge from Mars, Guns N' Roses, X-Men LE. I don't know that it... I guess I would rank it higher than The Getaway High Speed 2, probably. There were a lot of these built, and there is sort of a bias to games where there's a lot of them because a lot of people own them, and they tend to rank games they own a little bit higher. I think there's something to the idea of sort of justifying your game by ranking it high. I think we see that with new releases all the time. But I was just really surprised, and I don't think I realized this game was ranked so high. But so good for that, and it's cool. It's not one of the really super rare ones, so it's cool that there's quite a few of them out there. It is ranked that high. So Bram Stoker's Dracula going up. Going down, however, and this one is a game that I forget about. It's a game that is from the golden era to many people. It's from 1995. It's from Williams, right? Mid-90s Williams. That's those are the games. I'm talking about Dirty Harry, also designed by Barry Asler. This is a game that I have never been drawn to. I've played it on location a couple times, played it at Indisc before. Just never been a game I really cared for. Don't love the artwork on the playfield. Has some okay shots, some interesting stuff. Not my favorite. It has fallen down to the number 110th ranked game on the Pinside Top 100, 200, 300. So you have a mid-90s Williams game that's out of the top 100. This game, not very long ago, in June of 2013, so a year and a half ago, was the number 76 ranked game on the Pinside Top 100. So this game is sliding quickly. And I wanted to look up sales values on this one because I had a feeling this game's dropped, or at the very least, it has increased at a much slower rate than other games from this time period. So what I did, in my ongoing effort to bring Coast to Coast Pinball listeners math and facts, that's what we're all about here. This is what the show is based on, is math and facts. Not true at all. But I went and looked up all the other Williams titles from 1995 that appeared on the BostonPinball.biz sales history, and the numbers bared me out to be correct. So that's a big win for this guy tonight. The numbers made me look right. I like that. That makes me feel good. So I found these games: No Fear, Attack from Mars, Theater of Magic, Indianapolis 500, Johnny Mnemonic, Jackpot, Whodunit, and Congo. Congo did not have enough sales. It had no sales listed on eBay this year, so I didn't have a number to throw with Congo, but I know what Congos are selling for versus what they did. It's gone up. But I looked at the increase in price of Dirty Harry versus the rest of these games. The average selling price all time on Dirty Harry is $1,569, and that's pretty low for a mid-90s Williams game. The 12-month average, these last 12 months, we've seen that number jump up to $2,166. So still just barely over $2,000 for a much lauded golden era Williams game. Let's look at some of the other games from that area. Out of that list that I read you, to me the weak one on there, the weak spot in those games is probably Indianapolis 500. more because of the theme than the gameplay. Just the theme. And just kind of, it's, car racing, whatever. That game had a 46% increase, and the Dirty Harry numbers that I gave you equated out to a 38% increase. So Indianapolis 500 had a 46% increase, so it's increased at a higher rate versus the average. And these, granted, these are eBay sales, these are not the be-all end-alls, but it's all sort of relative. If games are all selling for $2,000 on eBay, then they're probably all selling for, somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800 in the real world. I think a lot of people would think and argue. So this is all relative, but I think it's a good barometer if nothing else. So the rest of those games, No Fear, 53% increase. Attack from Mars, 49% increase. And that game's been expensive for a long time. Theater of Magic, 71% increase. Johnny Mnemonic, 52% increase. Jackbot, 68% increase. And this is the one that sort of blew my mind. Whodunit, a game that doesn't get a lot of love and doesn't get talked about a lot because of its sort of, linear story that you tell and the way you play Whodunit. 87% increase in the last 12 months sales versus the historic average. And those are all games released by Bally Williams in 1995. And all had, near 50% increases or higher, whereas Dirty Harry only has had a 38% increase, and I would contend in the past year or two has probably even slid backwards. So I find that very interesting. That tells me if you were into that era of game, the deal for you right now is to find a Dirty Harry, and there are games out there for sale, whereas the game we talked about going up, Bram Stoker's Dracula, people are literally looking for them and there's want ads. So the competition is definitely more fierce on that title. So that's what I see going up and that's what I see going down. All right, so that is episode 135 of Coast to Coast Pinball. I might try and find some pinball to play on this trip. I'm driving myself a little nuts. The weather's been bad. I've got my boss with me. And, we got to dinner and we talk about work and stuff. So it's like, where I might finish work normally on a work trip and go find pinball. I'm hanging out with my boss. And he was actually suggesting, because he knows I do the whole podcasting. And he's like, so we should go somewhere where I can drink some beers and watch you play pinball. And I'm like, no, man, we should go somewhere where you can drink beers and play pinball with me. Right? Am I right? So we're going to try and make that happen. We're working our way down through Connecticut, headed towards New York City, and my boss likes beer, I like pinball, and in my head I'm thinking 2-Bits Retro Arcade in Southern Manhattan. That's the place. So that's my goal Tuesday or Wednesday, is to get my boss Aaron down to the 2-Bits Retro Arcade and we can play some. He also likes rock and roll, and I know they generally have had some of the AC/DC or Metallica pins on site. So that's what we're hoping for this week. Thank you for listening. Appreciate all the emails. By the way, we sold out like all the shirts. I had all these shirts, put them on sale, made them cheap, and you bought them all. Thank you. I do have a new shirt design, kind of waiting in the wings, ready to go. Just sort of waiting till I can mail out all the shirts I owe everybody. Most of them are sent out. Some ones that just ordered are coming soon. Something funny that's happened a bunch to me recently is there's a lot of people found this show in the past, like since Christmas. Maybe people had time off for the holidays and they found the Coast to Coast Pinball somehow, and people will find a recent episode or they'll Google something pinball related and find my show and they go, whoa, 120 some episodes or whatever. I'm going to go back and listen from the beginning, which blows my mind when I hear that. I've had people come up to me and say, dude, I listened to all 100 and so many episodes. I'm like, oh man, sorry. And what's funny, though, is things that don't last, that aren't, quote, evergreen on this show. Like, I don't know, I have a pinball shirt to sell. I get emails occasionally like, dude, I want one of these limited edition heather green pinball shirts, which was sort of my joke of the first run of shirts we did, where they were all this heather green color. I said, I'll never do these again. So I get these emails every once in a while, and sometimes I get PayPal money from somebody who's like, heather green and large. And I'm like, what? I haven't had that shirt in over a year. And then I email them, and they're like, oh, sorry, yeah, I'm on episode number 31, and you just started selling them. I didn't realize that was, a long time ago. So I think that's pretty funny. Hopefully people watch the website. That's always the up-to-date way to buy a t-shirt from me. But I do really appreciate that. That's fantastic support for me. I love the photos from crazy places like Aruba and Grand Cayman and even crazier places like Toledo, Ohio, of you wearing your Coast to Coast Pinball t-shirts. That's so rad. You don't even know. So I appreciate that. New shirts coming. Gonna go to a bunch of shows this year. Can't wait to see you guys at Papa, at Texas Pinball Festival, Midwest Gaming Classic, and a bunch of others. Find your local show. Go to pinballnews.com, click on the diary tab, and all the major shows are listed there. Go to ZapCon if you're in Arizona. Go to Pinagogo and California Stream if you're in Northern California or Oregon. Go support these shows and play games you haven't seen before and meet other pinsiders. It's so much fun and so good. And one of the ways that you can really, quench that thirst that you might have when you're maybe relegated to only playing the 1 or 2 or 10 games you have at home or the few games you have in your local area on location, is go to one of those shows. It's a lot of fun and awesome. And if you come to a show I'm at, please find me and say hello. I really enjoy meeting everybody. So thank you very much. Episode 135 in the books. Until we meet again, enjoy yourselves.